We're rocking and rolling here. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for our second episode of Defender Expert Star Forum. STAR stands for Strategies for Threat Awareness and Response. We are joined here by an excellent panel, a few of our hunters and researchers and analysts from Defender Experts. My name is Ray Wolfram. I am a senior product manager within the Defender Experts team. My co-host is Samantha Gardner, and she is a principal threat hunting lead, again, in Defender Experts. Just a little bit by way of logistics here. The video, audio, and chat capabilities are deactivated for attendees. They are enabled, obviously, for the presenters. However, we welcome your interaction, so please feel free to engage with us using the Q&A module up top within the team session today. We will be making all of our resources available through submission of our post-event survey. I will follow up via email, and again, we'll tackle that towards the end of today's episode. But I want to make sure that we have sufficient time to cover all of the incredible topics that we have for you today. And I'm going to hand it off to JT, or Justin Turner, who's going to provide our keynote welcome address.
All right. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I think I've got the team, not me, team has some really exciting material to share with you all. So as Ray just said, I'm Justin Turner. My friends call me JT. You may do the same. I am a general manager here at Microsoft, and I get the privilege of working with the Defender Experts team every single day. So I have been in this industry for more than 20 years. Most of that time has actually split between government and in the commercial side. So I've been doing this a little while. And, when I looked at the content that we're going to share with you today, something kind of jumped out at me. I thought, man, some of this stuff seems like we've been experiencing it for quite some time. Like, in other words, what's old is new and what's new is old. And like, is that really the case? Or are we like adversaries inventing completely brand new things, like new techniques and new styles that we've never seen? And so I went on a little journey. I actually put together like a list of what I think are the old things that are new and the new things that are old. And then I leveraged a little bit of support from Copilot, and I was like, okay, let me look into this. Was what my gut's telling me, is that accurate? So I started with botnets, and I thought, man, botnets have been around a long time. I know in the very beginning of my career, I was looking at botnets and trying to figure out how they work and trying to figure out like how they were impacting customers or even my own environments. And so I asked Copilot, hey, Copilot, what was like the earliest recorded botnet that we really know about? And it took me clear back to the year 2000. I had actually graduated from college by then, but I was still young in career. And it told me about the Earthlink spammer. And I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot about this thing, the Earthlink spammer. And a bunch of people are probably wondering, like, what is Earthlink? It's actually an ISP that I'm not sure is still around. I really didn't look it up, but 2000. So we're talking 25 years that we've got a history with botnets. Interesting. That confirmed. You're like, okay, yep, that's pretty old. And then I moved on to phishing, another prevalent thing that we see so much of still today. And I thought, well, I wonder what the earliest phishing was and where do we see that at, like in history. And really, this isn't to say that something couldn't have been done earlier, but this is really like what showed up in the news and what was prevalent. And it went way back to a phishing attack leveraging America Online, spreading the love bug malware. And a bunch of you are going to be like, "What's the love bug malware?" You go look it up. It was a scam sort of bit of malware spread via phishing. And that is around 1995 is when we saw that. And so I'm like, what, now we're talking 30 years we've been seeing phishing. And then it reminded me, well, adversaries are going to use whatever tools work, and phishing still works. And so they're going to continue to use it for a very, very long time. And I think, the advancement of AI as we see it will make phishing harder and harder to deal with. I even heard a conversation yesterday that I was in. I heard it was said like, hey, just a few years ago, when we were dealing with phishing, we were telling people, hey, look for misspelled words and look for strangely formed sentences, and that'll be your clue that this is phishing. Well, in the AI world, like it could still have some misspellings and things that are weird, but that's less likely now. Like they're getting really good. Different AI tools are really good at writing phishing emails. So been around 30 plus years. We're going to see more of it. So another one, confirmation. What's old is new and new is old, definitely. Another one is credential harvesting. And for this one, it actually reminded me of a book that I read quite a while ago. This is, not an official endorsement, but I personally found it to be an interesting book. It's called The Cuckoo's Egg by a guy named Cliff Stoll. But he talks about a cyber intrusion, a real one, that he investigated. And this intrusion happened in the early 80s. So now we're like 40 years, right? Like 40 years plus ago that there's a cyber attack where, an actor harvested credentials, they, targeted a vulnerability in a system, they established persistence, they moved around laterally, to do their bidding. It's a fascinating story, 40 plus years old, using the same techniques and sort of things that we see today, just stacked on top of different technology. And so I can't talk about all this stuff and not mention ransomware because that was like the last big one, that we've all been dealing with for some time. And I thought, I'm not sure I remember like when I saw the first bit of ransomware. I know many sleepless nights that I've had and many weekends that I lost helping customers deal with ransomware. Um, so I looked it up. Hey, Copilot, tell me some of the earliest incidents of ransomware. And Copilot actually pointed me to ransomware.org as a reference for a case, a notable one it was called the AIDS Trojan, but AKA PC Cyborg. And I'm gonna just read this to you. I find this really fascinating. So this was ransomware that was released in 1989 and it was created by a guy named Joseph Pop, and it was distributed via 20,000 floppy disks. So, like, that's dating itself right there, floppy disks instead of thumb drives. And the authors sent these floppy drives out to attendees of a World Health Organization AIDS conference, which is where the name comes from, right? And the disks were labeled AIDS Information Introductory Diskettes. Nice little switch target. They're like, hey, this isn't actually bad, but here's a fancy title. And it included a warning, though, that said that the code could cause harm to a system that it was introduced to. But once the attendees like inserted a disk into a computer, the program would log how many times the computer was booted. And then after 90 boots, then the encryption routine would start and it would render the data on the system unavailable. And to get it back, you had to send a check for $189 to a P.O. box in Panama. 1989. So, without a doubt, the things that we've seen actors doing, like we drop them into these big buckets, botnets, ransomware, phishing, etc. It's been going on a very, very long time. And what we're seeing is adversaries leveraging new technology and new techniques, but using the same, playbooks essentially. And they question, like, if you say why, well, because it works. That's why. So stay vigilant, and I think pay attention to what the team's about to share with you. I think it's going to be super interesting material. Talks about the new things that we're seeing and the new trends that we're seeing, but overlay those on this historical picture here, and stay vigilant. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy the content, and everybody have a wonderful day.
Awesome. Thanks, JT. So my name is Dylan Barker. I am a senior security researcher here on the Defender Experts team. Primarily, what I focus on is applied threat intelligence. And to that end, today I'd like to walk you through some of the things that we've seen over the past 30 days as far as threat actors and initial access vectors go, and sort of the direction of adversary strategy that we're picking up as we work our cases and respond to these incidents. First, I want to talk a little bit about some of the actors that we've seen over the past 30 days and the types of activities that they've undertaken. The first one I really want to call out here because I think it's the most important and the most impactful to the most people here is going to be an organized crime threat actor that we track here at Microsoft as Sangria Tempest. They are an actor that employs a diverse access methodology. So we've seen them both exploit things, utilize phishing and other social engineering, as well as leverage handoffs from other threat actors like Lace Tempest. They've also got other ties to Lace Tempest. So Lace Tempest develops the Clop ransomware. They've recently been observed utilizing that ransomware as sort of an affiliate to that e-crime actor. Some of you may recognize Lace Tempest as the group behind the Move It exploitation that was very, very prevalent in the past year. We've also observed Sangria Tempest utilizing some Java-based malware, which is a little odd, right? Normally you see things like PEs, be it run DLL 32 or other executables. So this does require the Java framework to be installed since it's delivered in sort of a compressed jar package. However, because that's so common and utilized for business applications, it hasn't really hampered them from being able to utilize that. So certainly something to keep an eye out for there. They've been quite active in the past 30 days. Hazel Sandstorm is another one we've seen a large amount of activity from. So they're associated with the Iranian Ministry of Intelligence and Security. They are very much focused on geopolitical ends in the Middle East and Africa region, very identity focused as well. So don't see a lot of activity from these folks on endpoints. They're mainly focused on utilizing identities to perform espionage actions. I will say, even though they are focused in the Middle East and Africa region, some of their most prevalent targets are going to be IT service providers and others who deliver services to companies within that region. So if they're able to compromise an IT service provider to further their espionage and geopolitical goals that serve the regime in Iran, they're absolutely going to do that. As you can see, they make up a huge proportion, relatively speaking, of the activity that we've observed this quarter. So definitely keep an eye out on your identities because that is certainly what they're after. Finally, I want to talk about Midnight Blizzard. So they are associated with the Russian SVR, which is the Foreign Intelligence Directorate arm of the Russian government. So they've historically done some very highly targeted activity and highly targeted phishing campaigns, and they continue to do that. However, what we've seen is not really a shift in who they're targeting or their victimology. But what we've seen is an interesting tactic that they've developed and in targeting researchers and others at NGOs and things like that over the past 30 days. The new technique that they're utilizing is to deliver RDP files, which is a little different than what they've previously done. And to my knowledge, we haven't seen another threat actor do this yet. But usually once Midnight Blizzard does something, it does kind of propagate out to the rest of the landscape. So what they're doing is utilizing these RDP files, and when a researcher clicks them and connects, it redirects all of the disks, be they local or network drives, things like that, to the RDP server. And so once that's done, that then facilitates Midnight Blizzard's ability to do reconnaissance, data collection, and conduct general espionage on those redirected resources. So while historically we haven't seen a lot of usage of RDP files being emailed out for malicious purposes, this is certainly a unique tactic that bears continuing to keep an eye on. Moving along, I want to talk about the initial access vectors that we've seen over the past 30 days. One of the big ones is social engineering, right? That's always going to be a big one. It's kind of like JT said, this is one of those things that's never really going to go away. If a threat actor can take a shortcut to increase their profitability, right, they're going to do that. If they don't have to spend time writing custom malware, if they don't have to spend time writing exploits, if they can just try and trick a user into clicking a link or pasting something and running it, they're absolutely going to do that because it saves them time and time and effort is money. So in this instance, we've seen a significant amount of phishing as it relates to attachments and malicious links, which are some of the more common old school, if you want to call them that, phishing techniques. However, we've also seen something that Keijan is going to talk to you about here in just a moment, and that's something called ClickFix, which is really sort of a newer social engineering application, and it is very interesting, and it comprises a significant portion of what we've seen over the past 30 days. Aside from social engineering, we continue to see exploitation of known vulnerabilities, right? That's one of those things it's low-hanging fruit. There's a lot of automated scanning out there as well as custom exploitation, but we continue to see exploitation of things like vulnerabilities in VMware, specifically CVE 2022, 25954. So if you do have any Horizon boxes out there, things like that, be sure and get those patched, because that is what we call jackpotting in the business, right? If I can compromise a VDI, I'm compromising 200 machines at once, as opposed to having to individually do that. So highly valuable target there to make sure you have patched. We continue to see Spring for Shell, and Log4Shell being exploited in the wild. Those are old vulnerabilities by cybersecurity standards. However, they are still being actively exploited. Finally, I want to talk a little bit about RMM tooling. While it makes up a relatively small portion of this graph, that's really just because phishing and exploitation are so prevalent, and this one is certainly worth talking about. So we continue to see actors like Storm 1811 abuse Microsoft Quick Assist. So some of the scenarios that we see there are a threat actor flooding a user's inbox with emails, and then they'll call them up pretending to be IT support and say, hi, we noticed you have a spam problem. We need you to use Quick Assist and let me log into your computer so I can fix this problem for you. We continue to see abuse of Beyond Trust and Screen Connect RMM tools to perform action on objective. I think if there was one piece of advice that Defender experts had for you as far as this remote monitoring and management tooling goes, it's really pare it down to a single tool, right? If your IT team absolutely needs this capability, only use LogMeIn, or only use TeamViewer, or only use BombGuard. That way, if you do see something like execution of Quick Assist or execution of a Terra, you'll know immediately that something is off and that this is not correct, and that's unauthorized in your environment. To set up Keijan's talk about ClickFix and the way it's being abused, I want to talk a little bit about the trends in malware that we've seen kind of over the past couple of years. If you were in incident response or cybersecurity maybe 2-3 years ago, you would know that Cobalt Strike was really prevalent. It was difficult to work any case without it ending up in a Cobalt Strike beacon or Sliver C2, something like that. And then last year, as things continued to progress, it kind of moved more towards Infostealers, specifically Redline Infostealer. That was bundled with everything. It seemed like pirated software, all kinds of different stuff, SEO poisoning payloads. You can see here on the graph that it was highly prevalent. We've kind of noticed a shift away from Redline Infostealer and more towards Luma C2, which is a commercially available off-the-shelf piece of malware that adversaries can just buy a license for, operated as a service. Everything's a subscription these days. Malware is too. They will absolutely utilize this instead of Redline Infostealer in order to facilitate their ends. So they will utilize these pieces of malware to collect browser credentials and all kinds of things. And what we're really seeing these days is that these are increasingly delivered via ClickFix and other pieces of social engineering as they seek to cut corners and become more efficient in their delivery of malware. With that, I'll go ahead and hand it off to Keijan so that he can talk to you a little bit about Infostealers and ClickFix and how these things are developing in the threat landscape.
Right. Thank you, Dylan. Hello, everyone. My name is Kayjon Soyini. I am with the DEX team as a senior security researcher. I primarily focus on threat hunting, threat research, and detection engineering to ensure our Defender product has the proper coverage. Okay, so let's talk about info stealers. We're gonna get to ClickFix, and like I always like to say, ClickFix is a info stealer's best friend, the way a dog is a man's best friend. But first, let's look at infostillers and understand what they are. Basically, the function is in the title of the name of the classification, right? These are lightweight malware programs that are designed to steal various different types of sensitive information from the victim's machine. And oftentimes, infostillers are delivered through phishing, right? That social engineering component. We're also seeing malvertising or malicious websites, advertisements, and so on, Trojanized and cracked software. But some of the main functions, and the way InfoStillers kind of differ from other malware families is they focus on various different types of sensitive information to include credential harvesting. So, taking um, stored username, passwords, password managers in the browser, right? Anytime you are saving information, you're browsing the website and you may have used the Microsoft Edge password manager or Google Chrome password manager or any other browser password manager out there. Oftentimes, what's happening is those credentials are actually stored in database files on your machine. So these info stealers actually look for those database files, SQLite files, IndexedDB files, and so forth. Also, web form. If you have web form, if you're save addresses, save credit card numbers and so forth. PII, often that's time stored directly on your machine. And then also session hijacking, right? One of the things that InfoStealers love to do is go after session tokens, cookies, and so forth to bypass explicit credentialing, right? If they're able to do this, then they no longer need to log in via username and password. They can just steal your session, and then now they can replicate that session on their device, and now they're logged into your account. What's pretty interesting as well is clipboard data theft, right? We have observed various different info stealers that monitor clipboard data and siphon that data in real time, right, as you are copying and pasting certain information. And then finally, we also have key logging. Again, there are some info stealers that will monitor strokes in real time using various different hooks and siphon that data over C2 channels. Okay, so what is ClickFix? Right, you've probably been hearing about that lately. Especially in the media, ClickFix techniques everywhere. So as Dylan mentioned, it is a new emerging social engineering technique that kind of combines the traditional phishing and malvertising delivery vectors with a user's tendency to kind of solve minor or technical problems, right? Now, though ClickFix has been married to InfoStealers recently. It's not exclusive to InfoStealers. Other malware families may use this initial access vector as well. So let's see here on the left. If you see this booking.com notification, this is an example of what we've seen in a while, where users will receive a phishing notification, primarily that claims to be from a reputable source, such as booking.com. Right? Who doesn't use booking.com? I know I do. Airfare, hotels, and so forth. And what it does is it kind of garners a sense of urgency. Hey, saying, hey, you may have stayed at this hotel, or there's a problem with your booking.com account, and we need you to verify certain things, right? And what happens is when you click on that link, that phishing link, it actually brings you to a fake domain that presents a fake CAPTCHA verification. And that CAPTCHA verification actually requires you to press the Windows run key and open up the run dialog box and Control V, which is a hotfix key or hotkey to paste whatever was copied to your clipboard. Now, what's pretty interesting here is between you clicking on that link and then you pasting that malicious code or script, you don't actually see what you copy, right? What happens is what you're actually copying is actually embedded within the link itself. So it gets copied to your clipboard upon you visiting that malicious domain. And adversaries love to use living off the land binaries and scripts, what we call LOBAS, such as PowerShell, Microsoft HTML application, and so forth. So we're going to take a look at what that kind of looks like. So what about the different malware families leveraging ClickFix? So as Dylan mentioned, first half of 2024, we have seen LummaStealer basically take the reins as the king of InfoStealers recently. It first made its approach in 2022, and again, LummaStealer, steals browser credentials, cookies, crypto wallets, and so forth. The thing about LummaStealer, it's widely available, right? Malware as a service, subscription based, does a lot of business on Telegram and other dark web forums. And then we also have DarkGate and DanaBot. So, I want you to understand something. Just because malware isn't classified as infostealer or info-stealing doesn't mean it doesn't have info-stealing capabilities. So with DarkGate, DarkGate is not new. It's a multifunctional RAT or remote access Trojan or tool, and it does have credential stealing capabilities, and along with defensive agent mechanisms, which make it very popular for use by threat actors. It can also include key logging and screen capture as well. And then we have DanaBot. So DanaBot is not new. It's been around as a popular bacon Trojan since 2018, but it too has since evolved to include info stealing capabilities, spyware, ransomware, and it also has defensive agent tactics such as geofencing and sandbox. DanaBot is known for credential theft, web injection, ransomware, and so forth. All three of these are delivered via phishing, right? Phishing still being one of the most popular initial access vectors. Then we also have malvertising and cracked software and drive-by downloads, right? You may be visiting a compromised website that you unknowingly visits that may have some maybe some cross-site script or some type of code injection within the iframe that initiate some drive-by downloads soon as you go to that website. So let's look at some of these attack progression chains. So let's start off with LummaStealer, right? So as we can see here, the first stage, the victim receives that phishing email. So I talked about that booking.com notification. Following that phishing email, when they click on that, they actually get directed to that fake malicious domain. And what it does, it kind of asks them, hey, in order for you to access this domain, we need to verify you first. So what happens is the fake captcha pops up telling you, hey, to run the Windows key. And what actually happening is in the background, when you paste within the fake captcha, you're actually pasting a Microsoft HTML application command, right? And it's used to run HTML application code from a remote server called bookcaptcha.com. Now, when you execute and run that command, it actually invokes a PowerShell script, and the PowerShell script actually reaches out to another command and control server to download remote code from various different PowerShell scripts. Now, what's interesting about these PowerShell scripts is they're actually they have file extensions of PNG, and if anybody knows what a PNG file is, that's a portable network graphic file similar to a JPEG. That's actually an image file. So when you expect to see from a PowerShell script is that .ps file extension. So they're masquerading as an image file. Again, this is another evasion technique. So it may look like the user's just downloading an image, right? So what's actually happening here is once that code is downloaded, it's actually injected into a low-bass process called redservices.exe. And redservices.exe actually sets persistence for the PowerShell scripts inside the auto start extensibility points. And basically what that means is that's just the registry run key location, right? Every time you start or log on or upon boot, that PowerShell script will execute. Following that, we also see redservices.exe enabling Chrome remote debugging on TCP port 9222 on a hidden desktop. Now, why this is interesting is because this is actually a legitimate Chrome DevTools capability. And what it does, it allows you to monitor browser activity in the browsing instance in real time. So all I have to do as an adversary is go to that loopback address. I'm already inside the environment. So 127.0.0.1 and go to that 9222 port. And I can monitor in JSON within the browser what's actually happening. And following this, we're actually seeing Red services use the data protect API call to decrypt these sensitive files, open the stored browser credential files and so forth, and even files on the desktop, and exfiltrate the files over that established C2 channel. So this is one example of an attack progression from ClickFix leading to LummaStealer deployment. Now, what about DanaBot, right? So with DanaBot, something similar. You get that initial booking.com notification. Again, same thing. However, with the Microsoft HTML application, we're actually seeing a double file extension. Here's to note, whenever time you see an HTA application, it has a .hta file extension. In this case, we're seeing .hta.mp4, right? Again, another evasion technique by the adversary to make it look like the user is just downloading an MP4 file, which is an audio file. Payload delivery is interesting as well. We're seeing Microsoft HTML invoke PowerShell script, which actually is AES encrypted, and it has the decryptor key stored directly within the script. Now, when you actually decrypt that using an initialization vector of 16 bytes, you can see the Trojan downloader is executed, and it actually downloads and executes the DanaBot payload within the app data folder, which is a popular folder for adversaries. The DanaBot payload drops a malicious DLL and a signed CAB viewer binary. This is legitimate binary used to view Microsoft CAB files in the temp folder. And following that, the CAB viewer binary silos that malicious DLL, and it spawns a Windows command prompt. And the command prompt creates persistence for the DanaBot payload with an LNK file, which is a shortcut file inside the Windows Startup Program folder. And then it also injects malicious code into explorer.exe. So again, we're seeing that continued living off the land binary usage. And then explorer.exe opens up the stored browser data files and so forth. And it also enumerates credentials from the Windows Vault Manager, right? So Windows Vault Manager is another feature of Windows where you could store a lot of sensitive credentials and components within the Windows machine. And it exfiltrates that data over to the established C2 channel. Now, I have one more attack progression for you. We talked about DarkGate. So with DarkGate, we're seeing something a little bit different. So the initial access vector actually wasn't phishing this time. It was malvertising or malicious advertising, right? So let's say you're searching for Notion, right? Notion notebook, note-taking software. What's actually happening here is the threat actor actually is using SEO poisoning or search engine optimization poisoning to push their fake notion at the top of the search results. And again, we're seeing that ClickFix CAPTCHA pop up. And then now we're actually seeing direct base64 PowerShell script instead of Microsoft HTML application being used. And when you decode that PowerShell script, what's actually happening here is it downloads a DarkGate loader, and it also downloads an auto IT script with the .a3x extension. That's a compiled auto IT binary. And it downloads that in the temp folder, and it uses the invoke web request commandlet. And in terms of persistence mechanisms, well, what we're seeing here again, auto IT, that dark loader creates persistence for that auto IT for the payload, right? And then following that, the dark loader is executed via the auto IT interpreter and initiates connection to that C2 server. And then the last stage with this is that compiled auto IT binary actually runs via an auto IT interpreter, which is a legitimate binary, and it monitors keystrokes in real time. And it does this using the Win32 get async key stake API call, right? This is a function. So these are all the attack progressions that we've been seeing recently, leveraging ClickFix to deliver various different types of malware with info stealing capabilities. Now, how do we hunt for this? So we have some AHQs for you to take a look at. This is the run MRU, or most recently utilized. Anytime you execute commands within the Windows run dialog box, it's directly inside here. And then you can search for that here as well. And then there's an option to decode that base64 string directly. We also have another AHQ for you as well, which is DanaBot execution. Again, you can see here, sometimes DanaBot is delivered via MSI files. So that's an option here as well. And then you can combine that to look for name pipe event creations within your network connections. And then finally, we also have an AHQ to monitor remote debugging being created in your browser by living off the land binaries and scripts. And in terms of product detections, we have here are some product detections that you can expect to see for this campaign. And then in terms of prevention strategies, of course, just remember to educate your users on social engineering, right? So with that being said, I will pass it over to Chinmay, who will be talking about rename binaries being utilized.
All right. Thanks, Kijan. Good morning and good evening, everyone, from wherever you are in the world. Thanks for joining today's session. My name is Chinmay, and I work as a senior security researcher in DEX, primarily focusing on detection engineering and proactive hunting. I will discuss an emerging trend today that's been gaining momentum recently, and that's related to use of rename binaries by adversaries for defense evasion purpose. So in recent times, we have observed a rise in attackers renaming malicious binaries to impersonate legitimate system tools, administrative utilities, or enterprise applications, because this tactic allows them to blend seamlessly into target environment. And by disguising these tools in plain sight, adversaries can execute malicious payloads. And in some scenarios, they can mimic normal administrative activities, making detection and investigation more challenging. So throughout this talk, we will explore the ways adversaries are leveraging this technique and examine its prevalence across environments and discuss the potential security implications of this tactic. More importantly, we will touch base upon best practices as well as defensive strategies that can help mitigate this risk and strengthen security postures against such evasion techniques. So yeah, let's deep dive into it. First thing first, what is the purpose or an objective of adversary to rename binaries? Firstly, one of the most common tactic is renaming binaries to appear as a trusted domain or a website, making it seem as though compromised victims or machines are communicating with legitimate websites. However, this is to deceive analysts who may overlook suspicious connections, assuming they are part of normal traffic. One prominent example of this is LummaStealer, which we would discuss in upcoming slides as well. Attackers also rename binaries to match internal IT tools or to resemble an organization's custom-built IT management tools, making it appear like part of company's infrastructure. There could be another effective method, renaming malicious files to known software brands like Adobe, Google, Microsoft, etc. Since users trust these applications, a binary disguised as a software update or an executable file is less likely to be flagged. There is one more reason, like the RMM tools, remote management tools. This is also, a lot of times adversaries also try to rename those because RMM tools are used by IT operations and IT support folks as well in an org. So they want to rename the binary and use it for unauthorized remote access into the victim environment. There is another objective of adversaries that sometimes they want to use store executables to create any anonymous or encrypted traffic. So it makes it harder for defenders to trace the malicious activity. And by renaming these executables, they try to evade detection and ensure uninterrupted covert data exfiltration over C2 communication. There is Microsoft sysinternal tools like PSExec. These are widely used for legitimate administrative purposes. However, attackers exploit this trust by renaming and misusing these utilities as well, and to execute commands remotely and deploy malware or escalate the privileges in the victim environment. Then there is another objective of VPN clients, which are crucial part of enterprise security, but adversaries rename these tools as well to establish unauthorized access while appearing as legitimate remote users. And lastly, there could be common system binaries that can execute like run DLL32, svc host.exe, etc. These are also renamed a lot of times to evade detection. So now we want to talk about what are the commonly abused binaries and the renaming tactics, like what kind of threats malware families or ransomware families are basically using this tactic recently, and what kind of trends that we see across environments. So there could be multiple malware or ransomware families like remote access trojans, stealers, ransomware, loaders, web shells, cloud-based malware, etc. If I talk about RAT, the most prominent ones are async RAT and XFORM. Async basically tries to blend in with auto IT scripts, legitimate auto IT scripts. This is most prominently used, remote access trojans recently. And XFORM basically renames and blends with, ASP.NET compiler, .exe. If I talk about Infostealer, the two prominent ones are LummaStealer and NodeStealer. Lumma basically again renames the auto IT binaries, while NodeStealer disguises as a JavaScript or a Python binary. In terms of ransomware families, Akira renames system tools. Black Suit ransomware gang renames system services, and we have also seen scenarios of Reseda ransomware that employs the tactic of renaming RMM tools to have or maintain unauthorized access into the victim environment. We have seen loaders as well, like Goot loader and hijack loader, along with this ICE ID. One thing to call out in ICE ID scenario is renaming of DLL files to infect systems. Web shells, again, this is another malware or a threat that uses renaming tactic. So attackers rename web shell scripts to resemble common web application files, preventing security teams from quickly identifying and removing them. And this enables adversaries to execute commands, exfiltrate data, and manipulate the system without being noticed by the security analyst. And lastly, cloud synchronization tools like rclone and megasync. These are used for exfiltration of data, deploying ransomware payload, etc. So these are few of the threats that are currently using this renaming of binary tactic. Now we will quickly, go to a few of the attack chains or progression chains, and we will see how this attacks uncovers in a victim environment, and how do we, prevent again to those, and how do we detect those. So first attack we will focus on is rclone. Just to give you a background, rclone is a powerful open source command line tool designed for managing and synchronizing files across various cloud storage services. It enables users to efficiently sync, transfer data, mount files across different cloud providers like OneDrive, Google Drive, Amazon S3, private SFTP servers, etc. While rclone is widely used by IT admins or system engineers, however, adversaries have increasingly, weaponized it and used it for covert data exfiltration activities as well. The attack method is simple. Adversaries basically deploys rclone, renames it to resemble legitimate system processes such as backup.exe or syncmanager.exe. So they just want to give an impression like a legitimate backup or synchronization is taking place in the victim environment. Rather, that is a covert data exfiltration activity that user is unaware of. And then they will quickly, collect all the files, sensitive files, compress them, and exfiltrate them and deploy ransomware payload. We will dig deep into this attack progression chain and see at what different steps adversaries are, attacking victim tenants or victim environment. So at the first step, the attackers establish a foothold using stolen credentials. And, this is to establish an unauthorized access into the victim environment. And then they drop rclone binary. Mainly, we have seen they are dropping it as a svhost.exe. Just try to mimic, a legitimate binary. And then after, placing it into strategic directories and disguising it, attackers initiate massive data exfiltration using rclone binary, and sensitive files are copied from network shares, host drives, network drives, etc. And for persistence, they also drop RMM tools, AnyDesk or Screen Connect. And after dropping RMM tools, what the adversaries do, they will try to deploy ransomware payload as well at the end, and try to delete backups, critical recovery tools, or disable any kind of forensics data on the device and leave the ransomware load. So this is the entire abuse of our clone binary, which is renamed by ransomware gangs mainly. And this is how the attack flows, and adversaries utilize this rename binary tactic. We will touch base upon one more scenario of Infostealers utilizing the rename binaries. We'll talk about LummaStealers because this is an recent trend that we are able to see across a lot of different customers or victim environments. So in the attack method here is adversaries are sending phishing emails or malicious links or using malvertising campaigns. They try to send the malware links to users. Upon click, they will download renamed AutoIT scripts and renamed AutoIT interpreter on the victim devices. And this is for the purpose of hosting Infostealer payload and in turn credential theft activity, or try to steal credentials or important sensitive files from victim device. Now, let's see the attack flow or progression for LummaStealer. In this scenario, the first step, victim will visit any compromised website or game downloading website. They will redirect to a fake captcha page with few of the verification steps. If victim falls for those steps, suspicious PowerShell command will run on their system. And after this PowerShell command is running, it will download renamed AutoIT binary. And along with this, it will also download AutoIT interpreter just to compile the Infostealer payload. So if you see in the screenshot, the binary names are develop.com, string.com, etc. These look like legitimate domain names or binary names or website names. However, these are disguised as website, but they are actually they are AutoIT scripts or AutoIT binaries looming on the victim devices. And at the end, the info stealing payload will run on the device, and it will steal the credentials, browser data, form data, etc. from the victim device. Similar to this, we have one more scenario of Python-based info stealer campaigns. So similar to AutoIT, a lot of info stealers recently are using Python binaries as well. They try to disguise this binary, try to rename it, and then ultimately try to host info stealing payload using these binaries. In this attack method as well, the victim will be clicking on any malicious links using malvertising, etc. And then they will download Python scripts and Python binaries, which are renamed on their devices. And it will run InfoSteal link payload. The malware is designed to basically steal browser cookies and credential from the device. This attack progression as well is straightforward, like delivery of a spear phishing email containing any RAR file or a zip file, and then that would contain a Python-based script or executable generated from Python. And malware will be either a direct.py script or a compile.exe using py installer. Attackers will rename this Python binary for the purpose of evading the detection. And when the Infostealer payload gets loaded, extraction of password, cookies, autofill data will take place from a lot of different browsers. And this data will be sent back to the command and control server using HTTP post method. And for the persistence, adversaries will use scripts, startup folders, or modify the registry keys, etc. So these three are the attacks which we frequently see across multiple tenants and environments. Now, how do you detect these, or how do you create your prevention strategies to detect these scenarios in your environment? So ease your so we have provided a lot of advanced hunting queries that you can go through. The first advanced hunting queries will basically identify any DP API decryption activity originating from auto IT scripts. Similarly, the second AHQ will provide you, any kind of a auto IT scripts that is accessing sensitive browser files like web data, login data, any kind of form history, cookies, etc. And the last HQ will identify any kind of renaming of Python binary, similar to what we have seen in NodeStealer case study, and then try to see what kind of a base 64 command are being originated from rename Pythons. In terms of prevention, we have a lot of Microsoft Defender for endpoint alerts. If you see these alerts triggering in your environment, then there are high possibility that some adversary or a malware family is trying to use the rename binary tactic and trying to evade the detection. You can further identify a lot of prevention strategies as well that we have pointed out here, like tamper protection, network protection, creation of attack surface reduction rules, etc. And at the end, we have provided some additional resources that you can try and go through and try to see further about these attacks and what kind of prevention and detection strategies we can design. All right. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Atish for identity-based attack. Yeah, over to you, Atish.
Thank you, Chinmay. Good morning and good evening, everyone. I am Atish Rajak. I am a senior threat hunter here at Microsoft, and today I will discuss about why adversaries don't exploit, don't want to break in. Instead, they love to log in. Let me quickly move. Okay, yeah. So, because the trend of smashing through firewalls and IDS, IPS, and obviously exploiting unpatched servers is fading. Today's attackers do not need to force their way in. Instead, they simply log in like any other user. And as the identity has become the new battleground, where the perimeter is not just a network edge, but a constantly shifting line that follows every login, every access request, every credential used across cloud, SaaS, and on-prem environment. It's like why to pick a lock when you already have the key, right? So cyber criminals are thriving in disguising, stealing credential, abusing session tokens, manipulating authentication mechanism, and they actually don't set off alarms because they are not breaching and entering. They are walking through the front door, blending perfectly with the normal traffic. And once inside, they don't rush. They try to stay low as much as possible, escalate privileges, move laterally, and wait for the perfect moment to strike. By the time they are discovered, if they are, sometimes it's often too late. So identity-based attacks are no longer a rare incident. They are prime attack vector across various industries that we have seen. Okay, so let's understand how these identities are compromised. Let's dive into it. So as Dylan pointed out, social engineering attacks like phishing, ClickFix, remain amongst the most popular ways attackers gain initial access. And when it comes to identity compromise, there is one method that continues to dominate the landscape. It's phishing, the king of compromise. And why? Because it simply works. Phishing is not a new threat. It has been around for decades, but while the technique itself is old, its execution has evolved. And it's the same game with a new face. So now I will keep it short, but zoom into most common and effective techniques that we see using which identities are getting compromised, right? So let me move further. Okay, so let's start with the obvious but the evergreen threat, the common credential phishing. For this, attacker just sets up a deceptive login page, sends well-crafted email, tricks user into handing over their credentials. Simple, effective, still everywhere. But here's the thing, only stolen credentials don't guarantee any access. especially if you have MFAs in place, right? So what's the adversary's next move? They have evolved. They have evolved as the adoption of MFA evolved. And attackers are getting more creative with their bypass techniques. From MFA fatigue attacks to session hijacking, adversaries are finding ways to exploit human behavior, technical loopholes, authentication blind spots. So MFA is not a silver bullet, it's just another hurdle for them to jump over. And they are really getting good at it by using techniques like AiTM, that's adversary in the middle attack. Now, what is this attack? So basically, it's a reverse proxy attack that intercepts authentication traffic, steals credentials and session cookies in real time to bypass MFA. And this is the most prevalent threat that we see across our customers. And I have a case study about it and also a demo, which I will cover in next few slides, talking about browser in the middle attack. So now imagine you are logging into your bank account, entering your username and password and feeling secure completely since you have logged into a legitimate website. But you are unaware that actually you logged in through attacker controlled browser who is watching every move of yours. So this is the essence of a browser in the middle attack. So now cyber criminals are always evolving their tactic, and to make AiTM and BiTM even more effective, they go something more crazy. So there is a technique called browser in the browser attack. So basically, it's a deceptive phishing technique that creates a fake logging window inside victim's actual browser, so convincing that even security conscious user can fall for it. Instead of redirecting victims to suspicious looking pages, phishing pages, they mimic authenticated legitimate pop-ups like Google, Microsoft, Facebook, and whatnot, right? So another one is web view phishing. And this is again a crazy technique to bypass certain level of controls. Basically what happens here is adversary sends a binary to the victim, and when they download and open it, they will just see a authentication page inside the binary. And once they provide the credentials, behind the scene, this binary will steal their token from their own device, from their own IP address, like signing will be from their IP address, victim's IP address, and the session token will be sent to the attacker. So someone has asked a question about session hijacking. How can conditional access policy help these type of attacks? Certainly, it can certainly help if you have a strong conditional access policy in place, because in most of the attack, the authentication is initiating from the adversary environment, which is non-compliant. Obviously, your conditional access policy will be kicked in, and it will block the attacker in real time. Right. So moving on to another attack, that's device code phishing. Basically, it's a sneaky attack that exploits OAuth 2.0 device authorization flow to trick user into granting attackers access to their account without ever asking for a password. So recently, Microsoft has observed an adversary called Storm 2372 has been actively exploiting this technique, and there is a very good write-up about it that our team has written, which I highly recommend to read. Okay, moving back to AiTM attack. Now this is the flow of the AiTM attack, how it works. I will quickly jump to the a demo that I have for you. So in this case, you can see attacker has sent a phishing email to the victim, and victim has received the phishing email. Once the victim clicks on this email, they land to a Microsoft Forms wherein they see a phishing URL. Once they click it, they are redirected to a phishing page wherein they are asked to provide username and password, and they will be prompted to provide the MFA, to complete the MFA, right? So all this is happening in the phishing site, which is just proxying it to the legitimate target. And once the authentication is done, victim will be redirected to the legitimate website. Behind the scene, attacker has stolen the session. As you can see, now attacker can just take this session and copy it, replay this session into their browser, and just refresh their browser, and they will be logged in as the victim without even giving username and password and MFA. So this is how this AiTM attack works, and we commonly see this attack in almost every organization nowadays. This is a very prevalent attack that we see and we respond to. You can see adversary has just replayed the token and refreshing their browser, and they will be logged in. Okay, so now the next question is, once these identities are compromised, how these identities are abused, right? So adversary can use these identities to log on to public-facing applications like remote services, for example, Citrix, or any sort of RDP service that organization uses. Adversary can use these credentials, these session tokens to against SaaS applications, like for example, M365. Right? And once they get the initial access on these applications, what do they do? In case of on-prem, let's say if adversary gets the RDP access, what they do, they start doing the internal reconnaissance, they do host-based reconnaissance, domain-based reconnaissance, they try to hunt for more identities so that it becomes easy for them to move laterally and still at the same time be under the radar, and they try to reach to the highest privilege in the environment, and then after they start implementing their goals, what they wanted to achieve. In case of cloud, they can simply abuse these identities and maybe use graph APIs to crawl through the cloud resources from the context of a compromised victim and figure out misconfiguration to exploit it and gain some privileged access in cloud infrastructure. And when it comes to hybrid attacks, most of the time we have seen adversaries target a special server called AD Connect server that has a very special and privileged identity called AD Connect service account. This is very critical account which basically syncs your on-prem to cloud infrastructure. Once they get the enough privilege, they dump the hash of it, and then they take over. They move from on-prem to cloud. So that's how they basically abuse identities. And here is one case study of SaaS application. So once in this case study, what adversaries do is they send phishing email with sometimes with HTML files. So there are a number of ways to lure victims. So in this case, it was HTML attachment that they sent. When user opens the attachment, they will see a link wherein if they click, they will be redirected to a captcha service, which is a legitimate service. Basically, it is to circumvent the automated security detection systems. And eventually they get to the phishing page where they fell for the phishing and they give their credentials and MFA. Once adversary gets it, they replay it. They replay in step 4 and 5. And once they are inside the application, because nowadays every application is having SSO, right? So they can just jump from Outlook to SharePoint to OneDrive, and they crawl your data. They look for sensitive data, clear text data, so that they can abuse without even breaking anything, right? So in this case specifically, they used a special tool, which is a legitimate tool for, I think, survey purposes, that is newsletter software supermailer. They used this particular application, they registered it in the cloud, and they started using it to send mass phishing emails so that they can compromise more identities, which they can use further for further attacks, right? And for evasion purposes, they often delete lots of emails. They create lots of inbox rules to stay under the radar of victim and organizations. And eventually, in this case, what they did is they used something called EM client. With this is a very lesser known client, like we have Outlook. This is same EM client. They used this client to log in as compromised user in their own device, and they downloaded the mailbox of compromised users so that they can explore their user inbox in their own sweet time and figure out some sensitive information, sensitive emails to abuse further, right? Now, I have multiple case studies of hands-on intrusion attacks that we have seen in the past, and we have documented it very well. You can see how you can basically just read these blogs and see how nation state attacks look like, how identity-driven attacks are sophisticated and sometimes be under the radar. So I highly recommend you to go through these case studies where we also did investigations in state nexus attacks. Coming to advanced hunting query, so whatever I discussed just now, we have also written lots of case studies that we see normally across our customer base, and we document that. I highly recommend you go to these blogs and read about what we detected, how the attack chain looks like, what all are the hunting queries that you can leverage, and what are the product alerts that you can expect, which can give you a sense of something similar happening in your environment. And similarly, for back attacks, we have some hunting queries that you can refer. When it comes to product detection, these are some high-level detections that you can expect from various products. And here are some mitigation steps that we recommend mostly that to all our customers when we such attacks. And for back also, we have some recommendations. And this is very recent one, wherein we are providing some guidelines to top 10 recommendations to build your identity security posture stronger. So with that said, I will hand over to Kejon. Thank you.
Okay. So if you enjoyed all of the advanced hunting queries that we presented today, and you enjoy the research that we conduct here in DEX, we actually have a tool for you. It's actually a Copilot for Security community-based plugin. It's available on our GitHub. And then we also have a tech community blog right here at the bottom that you can go view and understand the background about this plugin here. Many of the blogs that was presented in the other slide from Matish are actually the KQL queries are actually within this plugin. So it saves you a lot of time from looking at every single blog and trying to construct the queries yourselves. It's available in that plugin. So we do actively contribute to this plugin, and yeah. So that's what I wanted to present to you today. And back to you, Ray.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all of our presenters and all of our attendees. I know we're getting a lot of questions regarding the slide deck and the recording. We will make that all available, and you can get ahead of the crowd by submitting our post-event survey, and then upon submission, you'll get the ultra secret link to our deck. And yes, there are more slides than we have presented in real time today. But they're not in scope for our presentation. But be sure to include in our feedback survey the topics that you'd love for us to cover in future episodes. I also want to give a shout out to the resources we have available that provide more context and explanation around our capabilities for our services. But obviously, our STAR forum is focused on the technical content. And we also want to give a shout out to our partner ecosystem. We collaborate with our partners often, and we're excited to evolve this series to include them in the future as well. And be sure to provide feedback around that and share with us, again, the content that you'd like to see us cover in future episodes. So with that, I want to give another shout out to our wonderful presenters and our attendees today. And feel free to reach out to me directly for whatever reason. Again, thank you so much, and we are looking forward to connecting with you soon, probably at the end of March. All right. Stay tuned, everyone. Thank you.
Hey, Ray, I think there is a question about the BiTM attack. So how to protect it? Just have a good conditional access policy. So in this case, because the adversary's browser is in the middle, you can just have a good conditional access policy, which will definitely block it, because the authentication is happening still from the adversary system.
Awesome. I love it. Are there any other Q&As that we want to cover? I want to be respectful of time. I know we are 10 minutes over and folks have stayed tuned and they have been engaged. So again, if there's anything pressing, we're happy to cover that. But again, you can reach out to us and you can share your feedback or potentially even ask those questions in our surveys. We are reviewing them closely. All right, I'm going to look at the Q&A and see if there's anything urgent. No, we are good. Fantastic. Again, thank you so much, everybody. We'll see you soon.